Welcome everybody for today's first roundtable of connecting visionaries in the CEE region. This is an opening roundtable discussion to which I would welcome high-ranked people, visionaries from various areas of the industry. And let me just introduce from right to left. We have Kacper Koniarski, co-founder and head of development of Nevomo, a Polish deep tech startup which is developing transportation technology. We have Magdalena Jabłońska, head of MIT CEE Enterprise Forum, also into logistics, partly, but with a focus rather on IT, IoT things. We will discuss that later. Then we have Michał Grochowski, head of lot, cargo and mail. And in his function, obviously, giving a perspective what is happening in today's world, where air freight is one of the key elements to connect a region like the CEE region. To my left, we have Peter Vesterbacka, co-founder of the finest Bay Area development company, but also known as former Mighty Eagle of Angry Birds and founder of Rovio. We have Kustaa Valtonen, also co-founder of the finest Bay Area development company, focusing on tunnel activities and infrastructure and the whole ecosystem around that. We have Michał Zięba, co-founder of Hanton Schatz Zięba, legal advisory company with an expertise from a legal angle in logistics and especially rail. We have Janusz Zubrzycki, co-founder and CEO of Infra Centrum Doradztwo, focusing on railway infrastructure projects, how to get funding for this, but also how to structure infrastructure projects and to make it future-proof. And last but not least, my co-host Richard Stevens, who is giving us the opportunity to also from a journalistic perspective, looking at the CEE and its challenges and opportunities in the logistics infrastructure sector. So, for that introduction, or after that introduction, I just would like to head to you, Peter. When looking at the tunnel, which you were planning for since quite a while, actually, but you were planning to build a tunnel, not yourself, but with numerous companies, between Helsinki and Tallinn. Mm-hmm. This is a 103 kilometers long tunnel, which would connect these two cities. Can you just elaborate a little bit what you would like to achieve with this?
Yeah, I think that kind of the starting point, of course, is that we create one like unified metropolitan area, the cities of Helsinki and Tallinn. So we reduce the travel time for currently over 2 hours by ferry to 20 minutes, and going like airport to airport. So making it one unified area. So it's one way of looking at it is like a metro connection between the two centers. So that is the main driver. But of course, while we're at it, I mean, not only moving people faster, but then of course moving everything else faster, and also if you look at the geography, I think now it's very, very apparent and obvious for everybody that if you look at from a Finnish perspective, we're an island. So again, without the tunnel, we're totally dependent on the sea transport. So it's also from a logistics perspective super important. I mean, Finland is nation that it lives from exporting goods and services to the rest of the world. So if we're cut off from the rest of the world, then it's not a good thing. So the tunnel helps with that. And then if you look at like some of the metrics and all that, I mean, Helsinki became the busiest passenger harbor on the planet already in 2017, so past Dover back then. And this is something that is also comes as a surprise to many people that, if you look at Helsinki and Tallinn, not the biggest cities on the planet. And what always comes up when we discuss the tunnel, that okay, but it's not like London and Paris, and that's absolutely right. That it takes 2.5 hours by train to go from London to Paris, so it's definitely not like a metro or like a intracity, but it's like an intercity connection. So of course this kind of like traveling intensity and all of that increases when we have more proximity. So that is also why the ferry traffic between Finland and Estonia has been growing since Estonia regained its independence in the 90s.
How many passengers are traveling right now?
It's approaching million. Yeah, approaching 12 million. I think the pandemic, of course, like slowed it down a little bit, but you can kind of like draw the trend line, and it's going up.
20 years from now, where would you be?
With the tunnel, I mean, it's going to be faster than 20 years. I mean, once we get the tunnel up and running, we're going to increase the traffic from currently over 10 to over 50 million trips. Okay. And that's, again, if you look at metro type of connections within cities, the numbers, I mean, first sound like pretty massive, but it's actually... in these kind of like intercity connections, it's actually pretty low. Probably it will be bigger, but yeah.
That's interesting because we spoke about fast transport. Let me just pass over to Kacper from Nevomo. You heard fast transportation. Yeah. Nevomo is in the fast transportation business. Is that something where you could interact and say, hey, we make something new for this world which could be changing the game?
Yes, I think definitely so. Especially when we would be looking into the technical solution proposal, especially for solving apparent problems that you would have with moving fast trains in an enclosed tunnel. So I think that there would be a variety of different technical challenges to be solved, which is obviously doable. However, I think this really requires some new cutting-edge technologies that would really without increasing the complexity of existing solutions too much, really help smoothly introduce these kinds of transportation solutions into such innovative ideas like the tunnel.
Would you feel fit for the challenge if Peter and Kustaa would come to you and say, hey, let's make this tunnel faster?
Yeah, but I think that it's kind of a good example of also the kind of gravity that a project like this. I mean, it's a 50 billion euro infrastructure project, and of course it gets a lot of attention. So a lot of people want to be part of it, and that's also kind of coming from like a startup background. That's kind of like how we do things. So again. It's not like we're building this in kind of like isolation, always working with many other companies, and we've attracted a lot of new innovation to the project. So like plasma drilling is one example of like what we're planning to use to build the tunnel faster, and then we've been working this 6 years. So when we started, then the only kind of like realistic technology was just like standard like fast rail that we have like all over Japan, all over China, and also kind of like some parts of Europe. So that made a lot of sense back then and still makes a lot of sense. But I think that if you look at what is happening in Japan and China in particular, I mean, they have started upgrading their fast rail now to maglev. So it's kind of like what we're talking about here, or similar technology. So I think that, of course, it makes sense to apply, let's say, the best possible technology, because we're building this not for like the next 10 years, but for the next like 100 or 200 years. So it's makes sense to use best possible technology.
I think it's also about encouraging actually deep tech companies who are investing into technology, not only software. We will come later to that. But then switching to you, Michał, how do you see the connectivity, post COVID and everything what happened? I mean, we have now the conflict in Ukraine. Certain connections are simply not available anymore to Asia. Intra-European CEE region, how would you evaluate the situation from an air freight perspective?
I think that from this perspective, I need to mention that the year before COVID, we started exactly a serious project and a serious program and approach for the Central Eastern Europe to exactly, I call it properly, to boost the economy of the countries. Because I represent the air freight industry, and it's important to understand that 35% or 40% even of the value of the goods moving around the world is exactly air freight. Once the volume is 1% only, means that any good which is moving by the air freight is very developed, means high educated people are involved into the production. High developed and educated people created mid class. Mid class is paying high taxes. More developed economy is creating advantage of the other regions. So we started the project or serious approach, maybe not a project, to be more visible in the Central Eastern Europe as a leader, and I feel now that we are one of them. And people are asking about the market, about the size of the market. So I need to mention that the Central Eastern Europe is representing 1.5 million tons in the air freight. If you can compare to the biggest airport, which is Frankfurt, in the top year of this airport, which was moving 2.4, you can really see how big we are and how big market we have to manage exactly to support the people around and support the economy. In the pandemic time, for the air freight, for the cargo business, for us as well, that was a big opportunity to prove that yes, whatever we say, whatever we started, we can really create into the values. And just for example, LOT was one of the last airlines on the planet that continued the freighter operations, meaning the cargo on the passenger planes. So we exactly stopped to do that less than 1 year from now. Okay. And we see that innovations like Central Communication Port could be the response for our ambitions, and also a lot of people right now recognize that the air freight is something that can boost the economy of the countries around.
That brings me to the question, Michał. How do you evaluate the infrastructure right now, and what does a project like CPK, the Central Communication Port, actually bring to a company like LOT? I mean, can you cope with the demand for air freight, and can you feed into your structures, or what needs to be done in order to be really capable of serving?
Oh, it's a perfect question. I'm very happy to answer, and sorry that I take a few minutes more. It's important to understand that infrastructure as a hardware is not enough. Means that whoever wants to build up the buildings is not giving any response. The response should be the combination of the concept. Means today, the logistics world is managed mostly by the people from Western Europe and the companies from Western Europe. There is no freight forwarding companies around in the Central Eastern Europe with a serious presence on the planet. This is more local companies. So means that we have to think about the situation that we bring the freight forwarding power into our region. That's the first. The second one is the legal perspective. Means that if we are talking about the inbound situation, just by the way, Poland, for example, and not only, but Poland is a heart of e-commerce for Europe, not the Central Eastern Europe. You can imagine that e-commerce mostly is feeding by the air freight, but the air freight from Western Europe means that planes are landing in Liège, in Belgium, in Amsterdam, in Frankfurt, in Leipzig. Then the trucks are moving goods up to Polish warehouses, then distributed again to the Western Europe.
So we're talking trucking, not railway.
Yeah, at this moment, yes. This will be the next chapter of the discussion. But you know that I need to explain that. What about the legal perspective? Why is doing that today? because of two things. The most important thing is the VAT and the duties and taxes philosophy and the regulations. I'm saying usually, if you want to have the reception hub in Poland, you can easily copy and paste the regulations from Netherlands, for example, and in the worst scenario, you will have the best solution in Europe. This is the worst scenario because they have the most let's say innovative and the better, and we still are the part of European Union. Means that the bucket is same for everybody, so we can copy and paste, but nobody does it so far. That's the first. This is the inbound freight. Outbound freight is mostly the bottleneck is the non-shipper function. Means that the non-shipper is the shipper that is secured by the civil aviation authorities and authorized to ship safety freight.
Right.
In Poland, for example, we have only 15 non-shippers. In Germany, 1,800. More than 100 more. Same in Central Eastern Europe. This is the, let's say, the problem together. You can imagine the situation that even you will not change it and build up a huge airport for cargo, this will be still huge bottleneck. You will not be able to fit the infrastructure because the freight will be non-secured. Means must go to the X-ray machines. It is not solution for that. So we have to think about this one. We also, the last thing, I promise, think about the role of the air freight and the cargo for the economy of the countries, which is boosting exactly innovations and creating the value for the country and the development. We have to, that's my opinion, this is my private opinion, we have to offer or create the offer for the supply chain for any global company that is located here until you are participating into the global market, and you have not the global solutions for your supply chain today. You are into the slave role to the masters sitting somewhere abroad, for example, in Germany, Netherlands, Austria, and others. So, the part of the offer for the country to the global operators, global shippers, must be in place, is still not. So I'm very happy that we turn attention on the industry and the countries, not country only, but because exactly, and then I have to say that, the big pioneers of that, they are friends from Hungary. They started to create the offer for their local industry and also Central Eastern Europe because of the Budapest airport. So they understand that the offer for the supply chain or the global supply chain is important, and this is starting from that.
Okay. That brings me to the next point. I mean, we have mentioned solidarity or the central communication hub. I mean, Janusz, you are also involved in the thinking for railway connectivity in this respect. Can you just a little bit elaborate, because Michał was just talking about we have to bring the cargo to the station in a safe manner. What is behind this central communication hub, and what do we have to imagine about the infrastructure tasks?
First of all, if I may, I will add some things that I am, because you've introduced me that we are just taking clients to get EU financing. Our main core business is preparing feasibility studies of Polish railway lines. For CPK we are working on. Due to our legal obligations, we cannot comment on CPK if we are online. So because we have a legal obligation, our agreements that we cannot comment on some deep thing, but from my point of view, because we are also preparing transportation models, transportation strategies, etc., etc. CPK is very needed in Poland. That port is very needed, and especially the infrastructure which is going around. I mean the railway infrastructure, which is actually refers to the objectives that are put in the White Book published by the European Commission for 2050, when they want to move movement of passengers and cargo traffics to the high-speed lines. And this is the main idea of European Union to lower the carbon emission, etc., is by shifting the transport from roads to the rails. And the idea is to build high-speed trains all around Europe. They want to triple up or even more the length of those lines. And the CPK just idly connects to that objective that are officially published, and that's the European Union strategy.
So Poland is on track.
Yes, Poland is on track, and I'm not 100% sure if this tunnel would be on track because the huge of the cost of the building it, and only 1 million people to connect, because there is a 500,000 people from one side and about 500,000 people from the other side.
But that's like the whole point that I was making, that it's very different from like London and Paris. So it's, you know, like the proximity, and again, Helsinki is the busiest passenger harbor on the planet. It's not the biggest city on the planet.
How many passengers then?
So it's 11 million just for the Helsinki Tallinn.
Yes, but you have a daily in Metro Warsaw, you have 500,000 people. So you have in 20 days you make the same as you make the whole year between Tallinn and then Helsinki, and find the
between where?
In Warsaw, in Metro.
Yeah, sure, but this is the point. This is exactly the point.
Yeah.
We have a metropolitan area of 2 million people. So that's like, again, it's a metro connection.
Yes.
Separate by 2.5 hours
and
trip for
yes, but
and if you look at another benchmark is the Öresund bridge, so basically connecting Copenhagen and Malmö. So basically when that bridge was completed, 20,000 people from Denmark moved to Sweden because of like lower cost of living, and then everybody on the Swedish side got a job in Copenhagen. If you look at then the situation in Finland, we have 50,000 Estonians living permanently in Finland, another 20,000 that are commuting. So if you do the math on kind of the numbers of passengers, then you end up with the 50 million plus a year. So of course we built the business case and all that, and it's 80% is passenger traffic, and then 20% is the rest.
What is the stage of planning right now?
We have EIA running.
Yeah, so we have all of that, and we have basically we sorted out like the funding. We built a very, very detailed business case. I mean, we worked on this now like 6 years, and definitely like happening.
And the EIA in Finland, we're pretty much as far as we can get.
What is EIA?
Environmental impact assessment.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Precisely. so that we have pretty much completed in Finland. Estonia has been politically challenging, but now it looks like they have a new government that's very pro-tunnel. So we anticipate to move forward now much faster.
And you are applying transport goods in that tunnel?
Yeah. So I said sort of 20% of the business case is goods.
One is for the cargo, Finland,
the other for
to avoid the St. Petersburg, because now you are going.
Yeah, as I explained, Finland is an island, so of course all our export import is dependent on like sea transport or air.
And
but that's
even the Mediterranean, Scandinavian.
But do you use this railway lines through the Russia?
No. Why would we do that?
We haven't in the past.
Before I was preparing myself for this meeting, I just looked at the railway map, and I see the railway going through the St. Petersburg.
There must be passenger traffic between Helsinki and Helsinki.
So I thought this is the best way to move goods to the.
Hey, it's Russia. Like nothing goes into Russia.
Okay. Now from one.
Come on, let's name it.
About 1 year ago, we stopped the traffic. So But hey, one correction to your numbers. So Helsinki region is about 1.5, 1.6 million people. Tallinn about 500,000. So very much the same dynamic as Copenhagen and Malmö. Copenhagen is about 1.6, Malmö about 200,000-300,000. So very good benchmark that Peter was explaining this Öresund.
And looking also from a TEN-T, so the Trans-European Network corridors, I mean, you have the Mediterranean-Scandinavia transportation corridor, which leads through Sweden and then goes basically into Finland, but you have to use the ferry.
And that's a good point. I forgot to mention that last year we spent a lot of time lobbying our governments about the TEN-T kind of next phase with the European Union. And the tunnel is now the TEN-T plans also.
In the basic,
not as strong as we would like, but it's there. So
Yes.
it's a big step.
But it doesn't matter because we're not depending on any EU funding here.
Yeah,
So
so
it's like
it's
private
important for
project,
the
so
governments.
it's like, whatever.
That's one point funding, but that brings me to the legal part. I mean, being in the TEN-T corridor or having a railway, a seamless railway connection up to Finland through a tunnel potentially, Michał, that brings the railway safety and the signaling and all these kind of things. Because if you're TEN-T, then it means that you also can, or that you have to, you're obliged to ERTMS and the latest technology developments there. Michał, this is part of your stuff. Can you a little bit elaborate on that one? And how Poland is actually faring in that?
Well, this is actually one of the questions connected with the influence of the law to the development of the railway system. Yes, and the European Union is trying, of course, to help the development of the railway system, not only generally transport. And that is why they issued decision with the TEN-T corridors. Yeah, we have the base network and the complex network. It doesn't matter. Right now, it is important thing that there is a new draft law in the European Parliament right now to enlarge the TEN-T corridors to the Kiev, also to Ukraine.
Of course, right?
Yeah, and it is the future. It is possible, and because the Ukraine is. Has agreement with European Union, so it is possible to include it to the TEN-T. And the same situation is with Helsinki Tallinn, I think. Well, it is from the one side, it could help because it is possible to get financing, it is possible to get one route in one place, in theory. I mean, as a railway undertaking, you can call to one-stop shop and have a route on the whole corridor, in theory, of course. So there are some benefits. But still there are some disadvantages. Well, one of us here will say it is advantage, and the other one it is a problem. As you said, ERTMS, I mean the European signaling system, yes. From the one side, it helps when it works, but still there are some difficulties about working, about the interoperability of the locomotive with the track side. Of course, we have to underline that because of ERTMS, we have now multimodal transport and multi-system locomotives that change railway transport a lot.
Which could theoretically run once, let's say, from Helsinki through the Baltics, Poland, to the Czech Republic, Austria, Italy. That is sort of what the perspective is.
That's the vision.
This is the vision, but
we're talking about this.
But it is still right now a real situation in other corridors where some of these technical problems are solved. And I am sure that on the E20, for example, yes, from the Netherlands to the eastern Polish border, yes, the problems are solved, and one locomotive goes from the Amsterdam to Terespol, for example.
Yeah.
Yes. With it could be like a 50 meters long train, or it could be a little bit shorter, but it is still a quite long transport that goes from the big part of the Europe, yes, almost.
But do you have to change driver?
Yes.
On the board, yes.
Yes.
So this is the limitation of that.
But these are things that basically need to be addressed. And of course, if you look at now from our perspective, Helsinki, Tallinn, and then you go to Pärnu, Riga, Kaunas, Vilnius, Warsaw, it's all new development. So the whole light rail Baltic connection, and of course it will have the latest ERTMS, and our plan is to be able to operate the same trains across this and all of Europe. So of course the rail needs to be open up for competition, and then all of these kind of like let's say it's stuff that needs to be addressed, and our plan is, like with the drivers, we will of course implement autonomous trains for the whole thing. So we can't be behind like China in that. If you look at what China built for the Olympics now in Beijing, I mean, you can get on an autonomous train in Beijing and then you go on the 170 kilometers and it's like all autonomous. And this is what we need to have, autonomous from Helsinki to Warsaw, of course.
How long will that take? Because we're talking about a vision. What is your
6 hours.
Physical transportation, but from a project perspective, I mean that this can be implemented.
There's no reason why not.
Yes,
There's absolutely technically nothing stops us from doing that. It's new
but
development.
you need like a separate traffic on one line, for example, and some line right now in the European Union are very good to start the project with the, as you said,
But this is the best one to start because it's all new.
Yeah.
it is all
Greenfield.
Greenfield development.
The
Rail
tunnel
Baltic.
from Helsinki.
Yeah, but also Rail Baltic. It's being built now, so
with no interference with other lines on the with normal gauge. Yes. It will be only one Rail Baltica, for example.
Yeah, but it's all new development, all greenfield.
Yes.
New track.
But
The European gauge.
will that be sort of taking 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? What is your estimate of
I
that?
think 20 years because we are on the railway system still, where the new things are not so fast.
Okay.
Well, but just a question on that. So why will it take 20 years if you just look now at basically the connection from Helsinki to Warsaw? It's all greenfield development, all new. Why would it take 20 years?
But I mean that without no train drivers, yes?
Yes.
Automatic.
Yeah,
The ATO, automatic train operation.
So unfortunately, my answer is the legislation, yes? Because, for example, right now European Union is moving in the same direction that
But now that if you look at like what is happening, so we have the war going on in the Ukraine, and now we also look at what that is making happening. We know that we can't depend on like France and Germany. We're seeing very close cooperation between Finland, Baltic states, Poland, and then we just need to wait for Ukraine to win the war, and Europe will look very, very different. So why can't we agree on getting legislation sorted, in these countries now?
it could be some.
20 years is like forever. I think that is totally unacceptable.
Okay, we need.
And what is stopping us
We need
from
to find someone who will push the legislation, the dissidents in the direction. Right now, the producers, the manufacturers of the locomotives are pushing the dissidents in some of the directions that is good for them, of course. So you need to find, or maybe you would be one of lobbying.
But we are. We're that all the time.
We're not seeing very good action from EU, reading the latest news on the DG Move, for example. They're doing all things not pro-railway, so I think we should be kind of working this locally if the EU is not making things happen.
For example, in Poland, the LHS, this line, is perfect for autonomous traffic because it is excluded from the railway system. It is other gauge, the same as the Rail Baltica in the Baltics. It is other gauge than the rest, so it is excluded and it is safe. No one can interfere. Other train cannot.
So it's about
this
the
is
mixed
one-way line, so it's not. So
yes, not
it's a bit tricky.
But my point here is that, and again, like also, been working on this tunnel now for 6 years and learned a lot about the various interests in EU and elsewhere. But I think that if you look at now this kind of like greenfield development and the tunnel, of course, massive investment and all of that. So and Rail Baltic. I don't see any reason why we couldn't make this happen faster. I mean, if we want to get to like autonomous, and again, it's also for EU, we can't fall behind like Japan and China. I mean, and if we're talking 20 years, that means that we're 20 years behind China.
I don't think that autonomous trains make any advantage for China, etc. I think locomotives with drivers they are as good as the without drivers, and I would say that for the passenger traffic, it's even better to have people inside. From the psychological point of view, we have made this research in Polish metro, and people said they don't want to go with metro without the driver inside.
But in Copenhagen, they're happy with that.
Well, maybe.
So maybe Danish
But
people are like
not on
happy.
every line. Yes, this is not the whole metro. This is only one line in Copenhagen going autonomously.
Paris is going that way as well.
Yes, but they are researching. But I mean, this is not the case for the goods traffic. I mean, this is not something that is a milestone that we have to fight because we can't move goods in any other way because the cost of the driver it's so low in the whole cost of the project and the operational and operating the project. So we shouldn't bother this. Stick very strong to we have to do autonomous trains.
But I think that kind of built into that autonomous is again that fine. We can put like somebody to sit there.
The more important thing is that this Rail Baltic project has go down from the huge with a lot of lines, high speed, etc. And now on the Lithuanian side, it's only 120 kilometers. And they are trying to lower the cost because they haven't got the money to. So the problem is to make this project big enough to take this traffic, and then now they're going down with cost. They're lower the project. We started with the high-speed line for 250 kilometers, and we ended up with 120.
Which
and
is
nowadays it's even a one-way line. Yes, so
which is again is totally unacceptable, and I think that this is.
But it's made. It's the way they are building it.
So the infrastructure, just to understand, the infrastructure is made for 120, which you afterwards cannot upgrade. Is this what you're saying?
You can upgrade afterwards, but you have to wait 20, 30 years because there are other important projects around Europe. Yes, so that's why the problem is that the share of the countries they don't want to spend so much money for the railway line, which will not bring to their people so many benefits from the money, but you have to spend billions of euros to build that line, and afterwards for the people it doesn't make any huge difference in communication because they have roads, etc. For goods, it's very important for goods.
They can drive, but it's a little bit like.
I mean, this is the connectivity part we're talking here today about, and I think it's very interesting to see these discussions.
I would say more. In Poland, 10 years ago, we were trying to kill Rail Baltica on our side from Warsaw to the border, because from Polish point of view, it doesn't make any sense because we have not too much passengers, not too much goods in it around it. So it was PLK was pushing away that project. Of course, it came back because it's a political, it's a TNT, etc., and it finally Poland is building it. And I was preparing even a visibility study for that on the Polish side, and was planning for 350 geometry, 250, and then we said, but Lithuania started building for 120. So why we are doing 250? What's going on?
I mean, this brings me to one of the points. I mean, we just heard about autonomous driving, so we don't need drivers. I think what we have also to face in the CEE region is that we will have a lack of workforce. I mean, we are lacking truck drivers, we are lacking train drivers. How to attract and how to cope with the growth, which should be triple compared to.
What I'm hearing is that let's fly more and let's drive more and
no, but that brings me.
It's not like one transport system against the other. They have to be all connected and. You need roads, you need planes, you need cars, etc. You need every kind of transport to be connected because you have to build as the most effective transport system for the economy in a whole.
That brings me to Magda. I mean, you as MIT Enterprise Forum, head of MIT Enterprise Forum, you're listening to this discussion and. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the startup scene, and what is happening here. What's your view on that outside to this eventually?
Yes. So first, because we are a table of visionaries, we are talking about the vision, and now we are talking about the current challenges, not the vision is somewhere there. So when we have a program with startups and also corporate partners, we start with the future lab.
Mm-hmm.
So building future scenarios, many different scenarios, and many impact factors that may influence the scenarios. And regarding transportation, the future is autonomous transport. Yeah, and this is because of people's habits are changing over the time. And this is and we could observe that the disruptor that caused this change in habits were many different factors. We are experiencing factors like war, like COVID, but there are many others like demography issues, silver economy. So people will not be able to drive car. They will need autonomous transportation. So this is like an assumption that we can make, when talking about the future. And from that perspective, many startups are creating solutions for the future, while some of them, of course, are transforming the current, situation into a better one. For example, in transportation and logistics, many startups that we accelerated or we observed in this region were, because we have many developers, so software is everywhere, enterprise software and software for that solves the problem. For example, during pandemic, we have a huge number of people buying online. That impacted everything. And what was missing, that this customer-centric approach was what startups are good at and they were, for example, many startups with last mile delivery solutions. Yeah, of course, many of them were not relevant because of the climate change issues, and of course the traffic that it caused. But still, we need to consider that the future is connectivity on different, areas of thinking, not only railway system infrastructure, but also data.
Mm-hmm.
Data from telematics. This is a huge, big, area, business area as well. Data from cyber security, because of these issues we have around us.
Do you have startups which use cybersecurity?
And this is the region where we excel at such solutions, because we have, as I said, talents that are global talents, globally recognized, from blockchain, cybersec, software, So these are we have talents, but what we still are lacking is especially in Poland, is the ecosystem. I think that my colleague from Nevomo may say about it, because for hardware it's even harder. Software is probably simple, And the efficiency issue that was solved in last years by startup, because efficiency, cost optimization, customer centricity is what they are talking about, and they want to improve everything and make it more efficient. And this is what the logistic transportation sector also needs. So
because cybersecurity is in everybody's talks. You mentioned ecosystems, Magda. I mean, we have an ecosystem here arising when we talk again about linking Helsinki with Tallinn. Obviously, cybersecurity in rail in general is something. I mean, you mentioned about safe shippers, right? Which is not only the physical cargo movement, but also the data exchange, right? Mm-hmm. So do you see, using the word again, connectivity here, that you may say, there is some benefit which we could see from startups here in the region, especially in Poland, where you say globally known, to bring these together, work together on these kind of questions. Not sure, I mean, whether you have spoken about this or you will talk about it, but this is exactly what we're aiming for, to see what we can eventually do together.
Yes, I think the ecosystem is sitting here, yeah? Part of the ecosystem, and I mean, legal perspective is what may block us from doing things, yeah? As you said, and that's why it was the discussion, yeah, about that. We cannot accept that legal perspective is not transformed as well, because the technology speed and adoption of new technology is like increasing and increasing, yeah. So we need to adopt everything, yeah. So the ecosystem will support the transformation of every, like, say, stakeholder, and the one that needs to understand the impact of everything that we want to have in the future, yeah.
But are you confident that, for example, within the region, within Poland, you have startups which can basically deliver solutions for such important projects as we have, for example, in the railway infrastructure?
With railway infrastructure, I'm not sure yet, because of the test beds. Okay. Where are there? Yes. Do we have any test beds for hardware? I'm not sure if we do, but the test beds could be companies that are bringing solution to the system. Yeah. So now we are talking how we can organize that. Very simple. Just decide we can do that. We can start. Collaborate with startups that are. This is the business area that we are not doing. That we are explore many different, let's say, possibilities. Being not sure whether it will succeed or not. Yeah. Right. So that's the problem with innovation. Yeah, that innovation is risky, but we need to risk in order to change something. So this is the decision only, and the mindset. Yeah, that okay, we have many different obstacles, like from many different coming from many different perspectives, but as Nevomo case proof that the determination may be enough.
So maybe if I can say to that a little bit more, because doing innovation in the railway sector usually is rather difficult, because I think of two reasons. First of all, it's heavily institutionalized. So everything is state-owned in terms of infrastructure and also railway undertakings usually. Very, very heavy regulations on everything that happens in railways, because the first and most important pillar of the railway system is safety, right? So such is for the airplanes, yes, but safety is the most crucial aspect, and the other thing is also it's very, very market driven. Like we have the Siemens, the Alstoms, those big players basically dictate what do we use on railways. This example of ERTMS, we have now consolidated regulations, for example, for interlockings, like being the places where you said basically where things go in the stations. And yes, you have this one regulation that basically tell you how this should be done. And then you just have different solutions from different players, and they are not compatible. So in this case, I'm not trying to now say for the European Commission, but it was very difficult to first consolidate all the different systems from throughout Europe to create a sort of interoperable system with lots of exceptions, like local signaling systems, which will go away. But they have this timeline of 20 years in which they have to do it, because they cannot just, rip apart like 20,000 kilometers of, signaling solutions and just invest billions of euros into new systems, because just that's not feasible. So I think this is why we're talking about these let's say, horizons of 20 years, 30 years. And On the other hand, I think we will see more and more push for innovation in the railway system. I think the European Commission, the Parliament is really trying to be open. This is also our agenda, to allow for, innovative solutions, greenfield solutions to be more approachable, let's say, from the legal perspective as well, right? So we'll see how this goes, but we have new Hyperloop standards being created. We have joint technical committees by Sense and ELEC trying to do some stuff, regarding maybe some skeleton drafts for the regulations for the future. And I think this is important because we should not, in this perspective, look at, how to improve the current state. Because the European Commission will always look at this first, right? Because they cannot lose money, they cannot lose any more money, basically, as they currently do, because railways are not profitable. But if we look about, what kind of impact can the railway have? The tunnel, I think, is a very good example, because it's not about, the railways itself. It's about creating this commune of the cities. It's about, the growth in the region, right?
An ecosystem.
And the ecosystem, this enables you to basically grow other stuff. And this is only the tool for you to do it. And I think there would be willingness, if lobbied enough in Brussels, to allow for such things. But if we're talking about, automation, for example, this was this discussion. I think it is very important when this is customer-centric for passenger transportation. And I think this will also be allowed for, because we currently, this is my personal opinion, with passenger transportation in railways, have this problem of really lacking customer service quality. Right, when we have to wait very long for the trains, they are only in fixed timetables. Right, the quality of the rolling stock also different depending country to country. So if we allow for automation, if we allow for new rolling stock, because this is also a very heavy investment, right? If we allow for on-demand operations, for example. Right, where basically you supply enough rolling stock to accommodate for all the waiting people, let's imagine, right? To make the people want to use the trains. Mm-hmm. I think this is the way to go. And very last thing, this can also serve a similar purpose for the freight, right? Because railways will never be, the last mile carrier, nor will they be, a long range haul system, right? Which are the sea transportation or airplanes, right? But they are essential to have a balanced system of, reducing the amount of, last mile transportations, right? To reduce the redundant, trafficking of goods between the cities there and back again, because this is not where our logistics hub work. So I think in this sense, railways and its growth is really essential to do it. And in here, it's again not about how fast they go or how automated they are. Here, I would agree, but this definitely would help. And it's always like this. It's about the reliability and the safety of the transport.
Yeah, but one thing, so I don't think that again, my point is not that that they need to be autonomous or whatever, but it's built into that is that we have standardized connectivity.
Yeah.
So the thing here is that I think that you mentioned that the trains are not on time and all of that. I think that the big problem that we have across Europe is that. For the most part, the railway, and the passenger traffic, it's run by state-owned monopolies, and they are not the most customer-centric organizations. So our intent and what we're doing, we are building the tunnel. We are investing into, of course, then the trains and everything that needed, and we want to be able to operate with that same equipment across Europe, or at least all the way to Warsaw and hopefully beyond. But if we want to do that, then of course the signaling, and we need to have the latest and greatest level of whatever we can agree on in the EU, then with the ERTMS and where we'll be. But this is again something that we have to get. And of course, these state monopolies will fight all competition as they always do in every single country. And I think that this is also, like now when, Lithuania decides though that we're not going to make, this investment because we don't really need it. But then, if you look at then Latvia and Estonia and Finland and like beyond that, it kind of like sucks if you then like have this bottleneck because of like one country. So I think that this is also where we need to demand more, from our national governments, and we need to demand more from like the EU. And again, I think one reason, I'm just looking at like the situation in Finland that most people have no clue about, if we mention that, that we need to look at the signaling and ERTMS and all that. I mean, Finland only now started, digitalizing, and improving the signaling because realized that, wait a minute, I mean, this new equipment, keeps randomly accelerating and randomly braking because, the signaling system is completely fucked up.
And I mean, we're now, from time to time, we're diving really into the technological part and all these things hindering us. Let me ask a question about, well, imagining 20 years from now, will CEE, the CEE region, be the future logistics hub of Europe? Michał, I heard some comments.
Sounds like it's quite unlikely, but yeah.
Every second of my life, together with the team, and together with this example, which is a still student, we do all to be the center of the logistics hub for Europe. Maybe not only Europe, but the Central Eastern Europe, definitely. And for the 20 years from now or 30 years, definitely I do expect, and I believe in that, that we will be not in these relations of younger brother to Frankfurt or Netherlands installations or infrastructure. Definitely, we deserve for that. Definitely, a lot of things happening, and we are of the leader of the changes as a lot. Definitely. So. Yes, there is I hear a lot of things also corresponding with that. There's a legal situation, there is authorities' power, this is a common understanding, and at last, there's a question, if this is the common desire. I think still we have to spend a lot of time to explain, because we still are treated by, for example, for the Brussels as these young guys that must learn. I said no. We are matured enough to get the things into our hands, and I do believe that in 20 years from now, even the war in Ukraine and other conflicts, pandemics, anything. Will not change our plans. I tell that, for example, COVID-19 that you were asking in your previous questions, what did for us? Did nothing to help me, because my strategy were not changed, because it was good, and it's continued so far and every day, because we know what is our horizon of that we want to see at the end, and at the end is exactly the logistics hub. I strongly believe that the CPK, for example, is an answer.
But the war has a bit of an impact on some of the strategies.
There is an impact, but also opportunity. Every conflict is an opportunity for smart guys.
This war is more opportunity than
of course. Yeah. I mean, if we look at a place called Rzeszów, which is in the southeast of Poland, I mean, without the airport there, I mean, eventually the whole supply chains would have looked much different. That we are seeing what is supplied into Poland as a hub, then further into Ukraine. But the counter effect is that out of a sudden there's again a curtain. Whether it's iron, we don't know, but it's a curtain, and out of a sudden your sort of plans to be the platform for Asian traffic incoming, outgoing, has that changed? Because now I think you have 4 more hours to fly to Asia, or how is that looking like? And how?
Yes, but you know that it is not a problem. So we're looking for the solutions for that. Yes, because we think globally, and for me, I see a lot of examples when there's some authorities, especially authorities, they are building the maps and the circles. They're drawing circles of activity. I always I'm laughing on that. He knows it very well because I'm saying, you know, that my activity ground is the planet Earth. Mm-hmm. It's not limit me, nothing. Just the effort is a global thing. So you know that even in Asia we have some temporary problems. If there are problems, not so much, because even we can move a little bit less volume because we have to bring more fuel, we have to fly longer routes. For example, rate per kilo is more expensive. For me, from economic point of view, is not changing so much. Mm-hmm. But you know that if you mention about the Rzeszów, yes, it's a kind of a miracle what happened there. But you know that if Rzeszów would be not exist, that would be the different solution. Because for infrastructure, for the hardware, you know that the money are very easy to pick up for the hardware part of thing. It's relatively easy. If you allow, for example, the Chinese to come here and let them the ground or play on your ground, in 2 years you will have a few times more airport than the CPK is designed. Very easy. Because the global, let's say, opportunities are there and are absolutely there, and the people involved in that kind of the matter, they understand it perfectly. Right. But you know that's coming a little bit back for the startups and everything. I see the limitations around. I see the limitations, but I would like to say that, you know, that with this global supply chains, global expertise of the people and the people as itself, we cannot look for the, let's say, universal standards, because our civilization, Latin civilization, is a few thousand years, and at the end is not same standard. So within 20 or 30 years, definitely will be not the same standard. We still will be with the borders. We still have a national business. We still have a different mentality, especially when you mention Asia to Europe. This is much more different to doing business there, like here. Different interest as well. So a lot of things making situation different. But you know that for Asia, for our hub as logistics, I think that first of all of us, we have to understand that the critical mass is here. We just need to understand the figures and the numbers. Example, as the Polish cargo market is worth around 400,000 tons. But the people around, they think that this is 4 times lower, because the official statistics that you can pick up and show is only 100,000 tons. Because 75% of all activities are covered by Western statistics. Means that I mentioned 2.4 million tons in Frankfurt in the best year. Minimum 50% of that coming from us. And Germans, they calculated this is our freight. It's not. But they know it. Here, no, not so many people
and understand that. And you have sort of no platform to speak out and say, hey, it is not like the figures tell us, yeah? If you're mastering the statistics, then you can also, there's the saying, don't believe a statistic which you haven't falsified yourself, right?
If you know it, if you're expert in that, you know it, but it's very difficult to convince the people which are not from the industry. And I think that's now, you know, that we have a right time to discuss. I'm very happy that I'm here and I hear you about the common business. It's a very good time, because it's also a very short time. Just by the way, if we not catch this opportunity, we'll lose.
Yes.
Or we will have maybe same situation like in Western Europe, but it will be not the perfect situation, because some industrial projects are starting from the greenfield here. Means that the greenfield is a big responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. It's very easy to screw up.
Frank, so we actually have just about 10 minutes.
Right.
For this more formal part, and then there's going to be discussion for eating coffee afterwards.
Fine. No, that was bringing me, I mean, we were talking about impressive amounts for air freight. We have in Poland, and you mentioned it already for Finland, Peter and Kustaa, we have also a coastline. We have Polish ports. And a lot is obviously also moving into Poland via sea freight. How does that play from an infrastructure perspective, Janusz? Connecting the Polish ports. I mean, we have Gdynia, Gdańsk, we have Szczecin, Świnoujście. How does Poland actually position itself from a connectivity perspective again for the hinterland from the Polish ports?
There are some number of the projects, railway projects, road projects that connecting three cities. I mean, Gdańsk, Gdynia, those two ports, the dual ports is Gdańsk, Gdynia, and they are building the railway lines, etc., to raise capacity with going in and for export-import solutions, because now the capacity is very low, and those ports, especially when the traffic from Ukraine has started, they are not enough. And as well, there is a number of projects, investment projects around Szczecin and Świnoujście is going on. So I think in 10-15 years that will be a huge infrastructure which you might connect to Rotterdam, Hamburg, etc. Of course, they are not happy about it, because we are taking this traffic from Germany and
but
Holland.
We're talking CEE. We're talking CEE region. We're talking Poland.
Yes, but that was said that those ports and those airports are pointed to make service for this region. Yes, and so when we are building our ports, we are making them working on a high scale. It doesn't, especially the Lithuanian ports, etc. Riga, they also want to build a huge port, because the Baltic Sea, it's a very, very, very
Vibrant,
very fast rising model, because Maersk, Costco, they're going to Gdańsk, yes, and so this is this kind of the change of the in the whole transport system around Europe, because you have a new player, and when Ukraine will the war, you're going to have another very huge player who have its own plans to connect its infrastructure with European infrastructure.
How much has changed? And do you see this, that it will last? That the shift, for example, from the Ukrainian volumes, they were mostly going out of the ports in the south, we have Black Sea. Will that stay? What is your perspective?
Well, I mean, they will go through the Europe, because when Ukraine is going to be a production hub as well as Poland is right now. In 10-20 years, it's going to move to Ukraine, move to Poland. Okay. Poland has a huge advantage over the Europe with its export, with its production, etc. Yeah. Now, even though now the huge new investment by Mercedes, by Intel, they are starting in Poland, huge factories, building huge factories, which are supposed to work here 30, 40, 50 years. So the same thing, I think, will shift that services and production to Ukraine board, and the Poland is going to be a huge transport hub.
Do you think the infrastructure will keep up with that? I mean,
yes, I think yes. If politicians will not stop this movement, I think it will rise.
Okay. Well, as we're sort of coming to the end, I could continue for another hour easily. But what I would like to ask you is, when you have listened to this discussion and what you basically eventually learned today as well, what is your perspective when looking from your own company, from your own enterprise, from your activities? What would you see, what would you like to see within the next 20 years to be developed here in the region, not only Poland, but in the region, and what is your sort of ambition where you would like to contribute to? I start with Kustaa.
All right. I think it's important that we recognize that this infrastructure is not built in a year or two, so it takes time. So whatever we kind of envision to be there in the 2030s, 40s, and so on, we need to be doing that now, not like in the 2040s, where we actually need that infrastructure. So maybe to the politicians, the wish is that don't waste time, but take the decisions now.
Okay.
Very simple.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, and I think that again, if you look at the war in the Ukraine right now, I think that will come to an end at some point, and then that will have a massive impact on like everything here, because we're seeing, massive growth because of the war, but also then there will be the reconstruction that will be like massive undertaking. A lot of stuff will go through here, so I think that that's also like an opportunity to basically get the infrastructure in shape, because we'll need it. So I think that that's a good example of things changing, really fast and in kind of unexpected ways. So we need to kind of plan for that as well.
Kacper, from your perspective, I mean, you're a startup in deep tech, hardware, it's hard, you say, but what will the next 20 years bring from your perspective to this region, also with the technology you're dealing with?
Yeah.
But not only.
I definitely hope for more openness from the legislation point mostly, to allow for more outside the box approaches, more non-regulated approaches, of course, or in the spirit of safety, increasing performance, quality of service, and all of this, but not to be hindered by old historical laws or cultures, even sometimes that just for whatever reason disable you to really fully invest in innovation in the specific sectors. And from my perspective, railways really have a way to improve. It's just I think all the efforts that have come so far really hindered future developments. I don't want to go very deep into the discussion again, but if we said that we will implement some interoperable system throughout Europe, and we said that this is what we'll do, and we have plans and investments for the next 50 years in Germany, for example, then how are we going to now say no, because the technology is going forward? So I also think that the very important key aspect of this would be also thinking about future compatibility. So not backwards, but future. And I think this is doable on railways, because it's a simple system, in fact, and yet so complicated.
Talking about simplicity and complications, Michał, from a legal perspective, where do you see this going when you see a CEE region? What could you imagine for the next 20 years, or what would be your view on this and your vision?
I think the legislation should unleash the potential of the CEE region, and the direction with the reducing of the national rules, technical and safety rules on the railways in the transport. It is a good direction, because then the regulation will be unified in all over Europe. Yes, and then we can compete with entrepreneurs from other countries, and I think it will be very good. As Kacper said, it is also important to set some space for flexibility for innovations, and it is also the task of the legislation and the politicians. And at the end, I think the financial, new instruments maybe for financing the infrastructure. Right now, we are thinking and we are preparing the draft of the law that will be presented to the Polish Ministry, that make some kind of perpetuum mobile about financing the infrastructure. What we have on the road. When we are going to the gas station in Poland, part of the price for the gasoline goes to the special fund to the development of the roads. On the railways, there are no stable financing. Yes, we are close and always like that, and market don't like it. Right. So the stable financing for the investments are also crucial for the development of this railway system.
Mm-hmm. Financing, one topic, Magda. I mean, as accelerator, as MIT Enterprise Forum, how do you see this region prospering when it comes to financing startups, when it comes really to accelerating them? What's your view on that one?
So, first of all, I think that what I would like to contribute with is ambition. Yeah, because ambition requires ambition, and I think innovators are ambitious, and this is one thing. And what we also do, we don't forget about discipline, and don't forget about that it needs to be needed by someone. Yeah. So, but in order to have a common sense of different things, we need to have also a common platform that we can collaborate, partner, and everything we are talking about requires those partnerships. This is the beginning of some kind of partnership in a discussion, yeah. But I think that because this innovation, let's say, movement and startup ecosystem in Poland started just like 10 years ago.
10 years.
10 years. Last 10 years was a dynamic change in everything. And we started with some infrastructure, then we have public funding to boost the ecosystem. Now we have private funding, VC from outside. And this is like going forward. And the same is with any kind of ecosystem in this ecosystem. For the logistic, we need to do the same. And this is what we need to contribute to with this discussion, I think.
Okay, very good, very good. Janusz, your view 20 years from now, CEE region, Poland being in the middle, what is, from your perspective?
I think I've said this before. I mean, I can add to repeat. I think that we're going to have some more railway lines. We are going to be center of the transportation hub in Europe. I think we will how to say it in proper way in English. We will cut all bottlenecks so we can unlock our transportation system, and it will be good for Europe. I hope we will change this path on which this now Brussels is going, because otherwise the transport will be killed anyway, because now we have over-regulated environmental issues, etc., etc. For example, now we need 5 years of development EIA, for example, in any project. So we are completely paralyzed with developing projects which you can build just abroad the European Union. You do it 2 years in European Union, you need to spend 7-8 years, etc. So I'm afraid if we will not, we will not go through that bureaucracy, we will not cut it from the legal point of view, from the bureaucracy point of view. I think it might slower this process. Of 20 years is, from point of view of infrastructure, it's not too many. I mean, 30-50. This is something that can really change and show us. And I'm waiting what is going to about the technology of new technologies, because it might change completely transport. If we find an effective solution for the transport, I mean, which is not using the carbon, because now there are no effective solutions, because the electric cars, etc., they cannot transport freight, etc. So if we find a solution, if the technology, it might change completely point of view. It might kill, for example, railways, because if you find a solution that you will go with the some zero emission trucks which are driving autonomously, then you don't need trains, etc. So
True.
You still need a tunnel.
So yes, you still need a tunnel.
Exactly. Well, taking that to Michał, sort of as the final one, going to 36,000 feet, which is your normal cruising altitude, not yours, but your company's. How do you see in 20 years this region?
I see for 20 years that the balance point from Western Europe is moved to here. As people understand that the mass of the production and understand the benefits from that, and also we as a countries around also get the opportunity for freight conversion into the green, we can use to develop ourselves. But for 20 years, definitely, I see that we can really move the balance point from that. As Janusz said about, for example, Gdańsk, this is a perfect example what is happening with the sea freight, and that was the kind of pioneers. Because, for example, the air freight is always connected to any mode of the transportation, always. But you know, that's what Gdańsk showed is Gdańsk break exactly the supply chain model, which was based on the Rotterdam and the Hamburg, and the Gdańsk is new Hamburg. Exactly. In air freight, we have the same roles as Amsterdam and Frankfurt. So I see in 20 years that yes, we live happy. We are better known. We use the technologies because the more greenfields are here. It is something natural. And I agree with Magda that the innovations and ambitions create an ambitions. And why we are here. And Frank, thank you very much for the invitation. Why we are here? Because the pandemic time and the COVID exactly gave all the people opportunity to discuss about this one. Means the discussion about the transportation of the goods and the people, especially the goods, started to be attractive. Else, we will never discuss about that in this community here, and it is started. And definitely, I do believe this will be not stopped. Thank you.
This was an opening event for a series of events which will happen, but we are obviously also preparing for 9th and 10th of November 2023 for our logistics conference here in Warsaw, where we definitely would like to continue these kind of talks, open talks, critical discussions about the CEE region and its potential to become a hub with connecting the Baltics and the Nordics, but really putting a focus on this region and to elevate it towards an international level. So therefore, let me thank you, Kacper Koniarski, Magdalena Jabłońska, Michał Grochowski, Vesterbacka, Kustaa Valtonen, Michał Zięba, Janusz Zubrzycki, and Richard Stevens to join us here. For this first event, and feel invited for the upcoming event in November. So there is, save the date, 9th, 10th November 2023 in Warsaw for the logistics conference, which we would like to organize. Thank you so much. Dziękuję bardzo. Do zobaczenia.